What's going on, guys? It's Brandon again, and today we are taking a look at another Ace Day video. And today we have finally made it through all the countries, and we're taking a look at the Japanese Ace for the final country. Then we'll restart, we'll go back through, and we'll take a look at the US, and so on. But today we are taking a look at the Japanese Ace, Satoru Anabuki. Now, just like any other ace that I do, just remember that some of the information that I sometimes get, or the sources that I find, their information can sometimes be shaky, varying from source to source, so I'm just going to tell you that. If you see anything in the video that's wrong, then go ahead and tell me down in the comments, and I will be sure to correct it. So let's go ahead and dive right into this. Now, Anabuki is claimed to be the second or third highest scoring ace for the Japanese. However, some of the infamous tales that he is told have been questionable at times, which leads to skeptics to believe that some of his victories have been nothing more than a hoax. In his early years, Anabuki enrolled at the Tokyo Army Aviation School in April 1938 and graduated as a corporal in March 1941. With the Pacific War raging, he was assigned to the 3rd Company of the 50th Air Squadron, where they fought in the conquest of the Philippines. On December 22, 1941, he claimed his first air victory against a Curtiss P-40 and shot down 2 more on February 9, 1942. Well, there goes my favorite plane. After returning to Japan, his Ki-27s were exchanged for Ki-43s. The squadron was then sent to Burma in June 1942, and he was promoted to sergeant in December. Now, this is where his victory controversies start coming into play. On January 24th, 1943, he shot down his first B-24 Liberator. Moving on to October 8th, this is where his story gets fuzzy. B-24s were on a bombing raid against a Japanese convoy at Rangoon Harbor. Megalodon Air Base gets word of this and scrambles Japanese fighters to intercept the bombers. Among the fighters is Anabuki and his Ki-43. Now, conditions were very poor. It was very hazy and foggy, and by the time he was off the runway, he had lost his wingman and a second group of Ki-43s. Suddenly, he emerges out of the haze and stumbles upon B-24s. He ended up counting 11 B-24s and 2 P-38 Lightnings, which apparently didn't notice him. Now, realizing that there were no friendlies around to help him, he radios in for help, but oddly enough, the radio isn't working, and he's unable to hear anything but static noise. He figures that his men probably got lost because of the haze. It was so thick that no one could see through it, so he just got lucky and stumbled upon the rain. He decides to target the fighter escort, eliminating 1 P-38. He then changes his sights to the Liberators. He ends up shooting down a Liberator, which by no means was easy, with 2 12.7 HO-103 machine guns, and you gotta remember, these Ki-43s only had 500 rounds with them, so hell, I went into the mission editor, and I tried shooting down a B-24 with just regular guns from these Ki-43s, and it was hell of a hard thing to do. So I can't imagine what he was going through. But he ends up eliminating a second P-38, which was on his ass, and he somehow managed to get around him. But Anabuki is then wounded in his left hand and out of ammo. Normally someone would just turn around and fly back to base, but this guy pulls one of the biggest moves that is frowned upon in War Thunder. And as Fly Daily, I think, put it, said, very honorable. He pulled a very honorable indeed. He slammed right in the back of a B-24 Liberator. Now, after he slammed into the back of the B-24, he realized something. He wasn't falling. He ended up ripping off the elevator of the B-24, but he hit it so hard that his Ki-43 was stuck on the tail, and every gunner on that B-24 was just looking at him. However, they weren't shooting at him, and he thinks it was because out of the fear that they might strike the plane because he was so close to it. But he was visually making eye contact with these gunners. Now, he ends up sliding off the back of the plane. His Ki-43 ends up sliding off, and the B-24 ends up plunging down, but all the crewmen are accounted for. They all end up bailing out, apparently, according to Anabuki. And after he slides off the B-24 Liberator, his plane ends up going into a spiral, and thinking he's moments away from death, his plane ends up coming out of it, and he levels off, and he flies back to Rangoon, making a crash landing, where he is treated for his wounds and goes back to active duty 5 days later. Now, according to recorded bombing raids, it was said that no bombing raid occurred on October 8, 1943 at Rangoon Harbor. Now, do you think that this actually did happen, all the stuff that he said, or did this not happen, or do you think that it did happen but it was hidden because of the pure shame of one man taking out 2 Liberators and 2 P-38s all by himself? Now, I want you guys to go ahead and leave me your thoughts down in the comments and kind of have a discussion about it. Do you think this happened, or do you not think it happened? But anyway, let's go ahead and continue now. Returning to Japan in 1944, he became a military flight instructor, but returned to active duty, returning to the Philippines, shooting down 4 Hellcats, flying the Ki-44, then returning to Japan to shoot down a Liberator for his final victory. Now, when the Japanese Self-Defense Forces formed in the early 1950s, he became a helicopter pilot for many years before retiring as lieutenant colonel in 1971. He then flew airlines, retiring in 1984, and he sadly passed away many years later in 2005. Now, this is one of the most coolest and controversial aces that I've read about yet, and he's pretty darn cool. I like reading this ace. But anyway, guys, leave me your thoughts on him down in the comments. What do you think? Do you think his story, some of the stories are true or false? And what do you guys just think altogether? But anyway, guys, we are going to be taking a look at American Ace next. And I think someone wanted me to do a certain ace, so I'll go back over that and do the ace that they wanted me to do. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed Satoru and Anabuki. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed. My name's Brandon, and as always, have a nice day.